Greetings and welcome back to the Casual Wargamer. This video is long overdue, partly because I was never comfortable with any of the takes that I did for it, and then when I did get one that I was pleased with, the file went and corrupted itself like the next day somehow. So, a bit of bad mood, didn't come back to it until now. Also, if I seem a little bit nasally, I am currently suffering very badly with hay fever, so please bear with me, and hopefully it won't detract too much. So today's topic, long overdue as I say, is the Genestealer Cults codex for 10th edition. Genestealer Cults go back to the days of Rogue Trader, although they were not in the original release. They actually made their debut in an issue of White Dwarf about a year after Rogue Trader released. I remember because it came with a special offer for about £100. It would have been a lot more now if that was the case, where you would get the Patriarch, which you've probably seen, the big fat one sat on a throne, big metal model, the Magus, a handful of Genestealers, handful of hybrids, and a load of Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard as they were back then. And I begged my mum that day to buy them for me, and I got about halfway through building them, never played them, and ended up selling them on. I was very much guilty of the FOMO thing even back then. But they never made it past Rogue Trader. Pretty much the lore was always the same. I don't think that has changed at all. But I know that with the release of 2nd edition, Games Workshop decided to focus primarily on Tyranids. So it's been a good few years until they finally brought Genestealer Cults into the modern game. We're probably looking just over, I want to say just over 10 years now. I'm sure it was 7th edition they came back out. But they were always an army that people wanted to see back on the table. So I was really pleased that Games Workshop did bring them back. And jumping into 8th edition, I did end up selling my Death Guard to buy Genestealer Cult. I really wanted to go the part GSC, part Brood Brothers. Unfortunately, they had an issue in that particular, in the 8th edition thing, is that you couldn't do that. Mainly because if you didn't build your list around hybrids with hand flamers and aberrants, which were ridiculously expensive, you basically didn't have a very playable army at all. One of my friends at the time even gave me a Baneblade to bolster my points, and it still did not really help. It did help, but not enough. And ultimately, I ditched them for my Space Marines. And they don't seem to be a very popular army locally. I think we've got one player with a GSC army, and I haven't faced that since about October last year. But they seem to be one of those armies that people want to play, but then you never really see them. And in addition, a personal thing of mine is that whereas every other army in 40k is certainly something that you can see being part of a larger war, you get Astra Militarum regiments, you get entire chapters, you get craft worlds, high fleets, whatever, descending on a planet. Genestealer Cult really feel to me these days like they are better off in something like Necromunda or Kill Team, where it's small, proper skirmish level games. I still like facing them. I just kind of think that 40k may not be the right game for them. That sort of makes sense. Please, GSC players, don't slap me for saying that. But let's take a look at this particular army. So they have an army rule called Cult Ambush, which basically says if your army faction is Genestealer Cults, which it is, you get a number of resurgence points. And depending on the size of your game, incursion, strike force, or onslaught, you get 6, 10, or 14 points. And you can use these to bring back dead units. depending on the unit, the number of models in that unit determines how many points it costs to bring them back, and you use these cult ambush markers in order to do it. It's very, very thematic, and it kind of works. They are an army that, for their infantry, are going to die very, very quickly, but you have this opportunity to bring back those units which you think are going to be more useful to you. And it's also really good for popping up anywhere else on the table to try and achieve objectives, secondaries, or what have you. So the first detachment is called Host of Ascension, and this replaces the old Ascension Day in the Index. Now, it's been a while since I saw that, so I'm not 100% sure whether this is a replacement or an upgrade to it, but we'll take a look anyway. So it has a rule called Perfect Ambush. So each time a Genestealer Cult unit from your army is set up on the battlefield as reinforcements, till the end of your next fight phase, all those models have sustained hits and ignores cover. It's very, very good. They pop up and they go daka, 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 and hopefully they take down enough models that it's not such a threat. It's very thematic. It's very cool. Enhancement-wise, you have Prowling Adjutant for 15 points. Once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fall back within 9, and you're not in engagement range, you can make a normal move of d6 inches. You can run away, or get closer if that's your thing. A chink in their armour. Each time the bearer is set up on the battlefield as reinforcements, it has lethal hits. This is a 20-point enhancement. So this really goes well with the detachment rule. So not only are you getting ignored cover and sustained hits, you're getting lethal hits on top of that. Pucker. Very nice. Our time is 9, another one at 20 points. Once per battle, when the bearer's unit declares a charge, you can use this enhancement and get +2 to the charge. Very, very nice. And Assassination Edict for 15 points. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack that targets a character, they get +1 to hit. Very good. No complaints whatsoever. Stratagems. Okay, you know what these are like. They're very wordy. Coordinated Trap for 2 CP. Start of your shooty or fight phase. You pick 2 GSC units in your army that have not been selected to shoot or fight. You select 1 enemy unit. And if it's in the fight phase, it has to be that they must be within engagement range of both of these units. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in either of your units makes an attack, it can only target that unit, and only if it's eligible to do so, and they get +1 to wound. I'm not sure why it's 2 CP, but I suppose that's a balance out in case it's slightly too strong against certain units. Primed and ready. Again, in your shooty or fight phase, you pick 1 GSC unit from your army that hasn't been selected to shoot or fight, and they score critical hits on an unmodified roll of 5+. Now compare that to your sustained hits and your lethal hits potentially, and you're laughing. Tunnel Crawlers. In your movement phase, you pick 1 Genestealer Cult unit from your army using Deep Strike to come in, and they can set up anywhere on the table more than 6 horizontally from any enemy unit, but they can't charge. That's not bad. Again, if you want to get something onto an objective that isn't being contested or into a corner of a table to do an objective, absolutely spot on. Lying in wait. In your opponent's movement phase, you pick a battle line unit from your army that is in cult ambush, and you can set them up using a cult ambush marker anywhere on the table more than 6 inches. Wholly within 6 inches of that objective marker and not within engagement range. So it lets you pop up. Normally, I think it's 3 inches, if memory serves me correct. Let's just double check that. Yeah, normally at least one model has to be within 3 inches. This let you do it within 6. You can stretch them out slightly. Return to the Shadows. Your opponent's shooty phase. After an enemy unit has shot, you pick an infantry unit that was selected as a target of one of those attacking units, and you remove it from the battlefield and put it into a strategic reserve, so they run away to come back another day. And a Deadly Snare. In your opponent's charge phase, after they declare a charge, 1 infantry unit that was selected as a target of that charge, you roll a dice. On a 2 to 4, the enemy unit takes D3 mortal wounds. On a 5 or 6, they take 3 mortal wounds. So you basically set off these IUDs or thrown some grenades or whatever, and you do some serious damage on the way in. this detachment I have absolutely no complaints with whatsoever. It's really good. But saying that, I don't see it fielded very often, even in games that I have seen locally. It's your default one. It's arguably really good because it's easy to play, but I don't think it's as interesting to a lot of players as perhaps it could be. But personally, I have no qualms with it. Next up, you have the Xenocreed Congregation. And this one is all about your Acolyte hybrids, Metamorphs, and Neophyte hybrids. It's pushing you to play them over everything else, which is fine. And for each of those units in your army, if they have a character leading them, you can reroll advance and charge rolls. And if that character is a Magus, Primus, or Acolyte, they have a 3-up Feel No Pain while leading that unit. So the unit doesn't get it, just the character. On a personal level, I don't like that. The advance and charging is cool, but I don't think the character should be given 3-up Feel No Pain. I get it. The idea is that they are blending into the rest of the unit, and I'm guessing that's what it's meant to represent. But at the end of the day, it should be a 4-up at best. 5 doesn't seem quite good enough for an ability. 3 to me is too strong. It should be a 4-up. But hey, what do I know? That's just my opinion. Okay, then you've got your 4 enhancements. Now these can only go on Magus, Primus, or Icon Ward. You've got Genestealer's Reliquant for 5 points. This lets you reroll battle shock tests for the user's unit. You have Denunciator of Tyrants for 25 points. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes an attack that targets a character, they get +1 to hit and wound. Deeds that speak to the masses, also 25 points. You start the battle with 2 additional resurgence points, and that's the things you use to bring model units back. It's always handy. And Incendiary Inspiration for 15 points. The bearer's unit can declare a charge on a turn in which they advanced. Again, no grumbles. Stratagems. Vengeance for the Martyr. In your opponent's shooty or fight phase, just after an enemy unit destroys a Genestealer Cult's character, you have to pick another Genestealer Cult character on the table, even though it doesn't affect them, presumably because they're taking up the banner of revolution. And until the end of the battle, each time a friendly Acolyte hybrid, hybrid Metamorphs, or Neophyte hybrids, from now on I'm just going to call these hybrids, okay? It's just easier on the older... on me. So each time a friendly Acolyte hybrids, blah, 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 model makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, they get to reroll hit rolls of 1. If the destroyed model was a Magus, Primus, or Icon Ward, you reroll the hit roll instead. Nice. Frenzied Devotion in the fight phase. One of your hybrid units has not been selected to fight. You improve the attack and weapon skill of melee weapons equipped by those models, excluding characters, by 1, and they gain hazardous. So for that fight phase, you are hitting better, potentially more often, but you're running the risk of getting yourself, you're leaving yourself exposed and potentially dying from it. Need to bump someone off? Maybe it scores you assassinate. It's all good. Tireless Fervor. In your charge phase, pardon me, 1 hybrid unit from your army that was not declared to charge in this phase. Until the end of the phase, that unit can declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced or fell back. When doing so, if it targets an enemy unit with engagement range of 1 or more friendly characters, you can reroll the charge roll. Nice. Transcendent Celerity, your shooting phase. 1 hybrid unit that has not been selected to shoot. Their ranged weapons gain assault, so you can get them up the table and shoot. The Downtrodden Rise for 2 CP. End of the reinforcement set with your opponent's movement phase. If you have no cult ambush markers on the table, you can pick one of your hybrid units that is in cult ambush, and you can set them up on the table without using a cult ambush marker, but they must be set up more than 9 inches horizontally away from all enemy units, not in your opponent's deployment zone, and wholly within 9 inches of a table edge. So it's very specific, but it basically means you can bring something back on for the cost of 2 CP, but it's coming on an edge rather than where you might want it. But there's always the use that you can use that for secondary objectives or something else. And lastly, the Path of Anguish. In your opponent's shooting phase after they have shot, one Acolyte hybrid or Neophyte hybrid unit that had one or more models destroyed gets to move d6 inches, but must end as close as possible to the closest enemy unit, but not aircraft. When doing so, models can move within engagement range of that enemy unit. Okay, so again, you've got a quite nice looking detachment built around your hybrids. No complaints, you know. Biosantic Brood Surge. And this is the one that every time I see Genestealer Cults played under this codex, this is the detachment they take. And it's brutal. Brutal. So it has a rule: Hypermorphic Fury. You get +1 to charge rolls made for Aberrants, Biophagus, and Pure Strain Genestealers. In addition, each time such a unit is selected to fight, if it made a charge, models in that unit get +1 to attacks on their melee weapons. Very, very nice. You've got 4 enhancements as usual. With the exception of one of these, they are all Abominants, Biophagus, or Patriarchs. One of them, the Biomorph adaptation, is just Abominant or Patriarch. You've got Predatory Instincts for 20 points. Models in the various unit have Infiltrate, and once per battle round, you can target them with Heroic Intervention for 0, even if it's already been used. That's really nice on the Abominant with his boys, setting them up the table so they can just run out and start laying into you. Nice. Biomorph adaptation. This is 25 points. This is the one that's only Abominant and Patriarch. You improve the AP and damage of melee weapons equipped by the bearer by 1. Nice. Mutagenic regeneration for 10 points. In the command phase, 1 model in the bearer's unit regains a lost wound. Nice. And Alien Majesty for 15 points. While an enemy unit is engagement range of the bearer's unit, they get -1 to their objective control to a minimum of 1. Again, very nice. Stratagems. Evasive Vanguard. These are these weird ones. In any phase, just after an enemy unit ends a move within 9 inches of one or more of your cult ambush markers, before removing that marker from the battlefield, because the enemy wants to get near these things to get rid of them so you can't bring stuff back on, you can pick a Pure Strain Genestealers unit from your army that is in cult ambush. You select one of those ambush markers, you can move it up to 6 inches. If it's still within 9 of an enemy unit, then it's gone. Otherwise, you can select only Pure Strain Genestealer units from your army to use that ambush marker. It's kind of very specific. I don't know. Part of me kind of ponders what they were trying to do with this, because why make it just Pure Strain Genestealers? I mean, I get it, it's trying to get you to play them, but you're also trying to play Aberrants, Abominants, and so on in this. So why make it just Genestealers? I don't know. There's probably a very good reason for it that my my addled brain does not recognise. If you know what it is, pop it down below in the comment. But fair enough, you know. Then you get Saintly Paroxysm, and now I do like this one. So after an enemy unit destroys a GSC character in your army, that destroyed character model is the target even though they're dead. You roll a dice. On a 2+, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and if they were an Abominant or Patriarch, it's 2d3 mortal wounds instead. So basically, you pull the pin on one of your grenades and you take them with you. Love it. Gene Twisted Muscle. In the fight phase, you pick an Aberrant, Biophagus, or Pure Strain Genestealer unit that has not been selected to fight. If they're targeting a monster or vehicle, they get +1 to the wound roll. Nice. Helps you deal with things that you might struggle with. Hypermetabolic Vigor. In the fight phase, again, it's an Aberrant, Biophagus, or Pure Strain Genestealer that has not been selected to fight. And instead of piling or consolidating, it can go up to 6 instead, providing it gets closer to the enemy. It doesn't have to be the closest enemy model, but it has to be the closest enemy unit. Very nice. Stimulated Biosurge in your charge phase. One Aberrant, Biophagus, or Genestealer unit does not declare a charge, and this is an interesting one. Till the end of the phase, each time your unit declares a charge, If the closest eligible enemy unit is selected as one of the targets of that charge, add 1 to the charge roll for each selected target of that charge, including the closest eligible enemy unit, to a maximum of +3. So if you charged it with other units beforehand, this unit gets a boost to its charge to get in there as well. It's quite nice, but do you really want to like throw 2 or 3 units in already just to do that? I suppose it gets your units a little bit closer up the field, but still. But it could be handy if you really needed to. And then you get Bio-Horror Revelation. In your opponent, start of your opponent's shooting phase, you pick an Aberrance Biophagus or Pure Strain Genestealer unit. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit within 9 inches of your unit is selected to shoot, it has to make a leadership test at -1. If it fails, then each time a model in that unit makes an attack against that target, that targets your unit, gets -1 to the hit roll. So you're basically scaring them. Okay, I have played against this quite a few times, and basically it is brutal. It's hard hitting, it's nasty, and with the resurgence points bringing Aberrance back, yeah, I like it though. It's a very good detachment. It's fun. Which brings us to the one that struggles with me, called the Outlander Claw. I don't like this one. I think it's too specific. I think that's the grain of my problem. Let's go into it and you'll see what I mean. If I'm getting anything wrong on this, please tell me and we'll go through it. Okay, so it has a detachment rule called Rapid Takeover. So while the Genestealer Cults mounted or vehicle model in your army is not battle shocked, it gets +1 OC. Nice. In addition, at the end of your command phase, if one or more Atlan Jackal units from your army are within range of an objective marker you control, it becomes sticky. Okay. So detachments in 10th edition are very much, we want to push you to play these units, these models. And that's great for most codices, which have a variety of things that they can do it with. But this is basically pushing you to play vehicles and bikes. And the problem is, you obviously want to try and take your other stuff, but everything is geared towards these. And I'm not entirely sure it works. It's not like, what's it called, the Stormlance detachment for Marines, where it's built around your Outriders and things charging. Because at least that works on other things. This is all just those vehicles and pushing you on bikes, on Jackals. Again, my noggin just doesn't get why you would want to play this detachment. It's too specific on what it's pushing you to play. But again, if I'm missing something, tell me down below. I am always up for a lesson. So that's your detachment rule. You have 4 enhancements. You have Serpentine Tactics for 10 points. A mounted unit only. The bearer's unit is eligible to shoot on the turn it fell back. Nice. Cartographic Data Leech for 10 points. While the bearer is embarked within a transport, each time that transport is selected to shoot until the end of the phase, improve the ballistic skill of ranged weapons equipped by that transport as a result of the firing deck by 1. So that's giving you a character with a normal unit in a transport, better ballistic skill. No problems. But it kind of feels that if you're having to play extra units, this is how they're trying to get you to do it. But you don't want to play extra units. You want to play the vehicles and the bikes. Starfall shells for 10 points. Mounted model only in your shooting phase. After the bearer has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks made with a Cult sniper rifle. So this is just your Jackals, if memory serves right. Until the start of your next shooting phase, each time a model in an enemy unit makes an attack, they get -1 to hit. So you're putting down suppressive fire with these. Although it tries to put across a supernatural aura on the bullet, it's just suppression fire. Nice. And Assault Commando. Each time a model in the bearer's unit makes a ranged attack, if it disembarks from a transport this turn, you can reroll the hit roll. Always handy. 15 points. Okay. stratagems. Along shadow trails, any phase after an enemy unit ends a move within 9 inches of one or more of your ambush markers, you have to have an Athlan Jackals model in Cult Ambush to be the target. And this is the same as that Genestealer one we were talking about in the previous here. So basically you move it, and as long as it ends up more than 9 inches away from, it can move anywhere on the table more than 9 inches away from enemy units and wholly within 6 inches of a battlefield edge, but only Athlan Jackal units can use it to come up from Cult Ambush. Again, like with the Genestealer card, I don't see why it's so. The Genestealer one, I don't see why it's so specific. I suppose it makes more sense in this one because obviously your vehicles can't pop up from it as easily, but it just feels strange. The Genestealer Cult one, I keep saying Genestealer, the Pure Strange Genestealer one didn't seem to sit right in my head, and this one doesn't either. Devoted crew. In your opponent's shooting or fight phase, after an enemy unit selected their targets, you can choose one rock grinder or truck or selected one of those attacks, and they reduce the damage of any incoming by 1 for the phase. Nice. Close range shootout. In your shooty phase, one Genestealer Cults mounted or Cults vehicle in your army that has not been selected to shoot gets lethal hits when shooting an enemy unit within 18 inches. Nice. Rapid feint, your opponent's movement phase after they do a normal advance or fallback move, you can pick a Ridge Runner or a Jackals unit that is within 9 of that unit and they get to move 6. They run away. Nice. Deft Maneuvering, in your opponent's shooting phase after the enemy unit selects its targets, you pick a Ridge Runner or Jackals unit and they get a 4-up invulnerable save until the end of the shooting phase. So they're ducking and they're diving and they're weaving. Nice and cinematic. And encircling the prey. End of your fight phase, you pick a mounted or vehicle unit that is not within engagement range and wholly within 9 inches of a battlefield edge, and they drive off into strategic reserve. Did I feel like I was running through that really quickly? Yes, I probably was. But again, it's really pushing you on those vehicles. But I don't like this one. This is why I wasn't happy with the previous attempts at this, because I've been trying desperately to see why you would want to play this detachment, and I just don't get it. I just don't think it works. I think there's some nice stratagems in there, but a list built around bikes and vehicles isn't going to be as good as any of the other detachments you've got here, and I think it needs a rehash. If I'm missing something, as I said, teach me, drop it down in a comment down below. Lastly, we had the Brood Brother Auxilia. Now, this is what I was saying about at the beginning, what I wanted to do, which was to play partly Genestealers, partly Astra Militarum Brood Brothers, which you couldn't do. I like this detachment, but it has a couple of small flaws. One of them is a nitpick, I will give. The other, however, I think is an oversight. So it has a rule called Integrated Tactics, which says each time an Astra Militarum unit from your army, and we'll come to that shortly, is selected to shoot, you can select one enemy unit within 18 inches and visible. If you do, until the end of the phase, models in that Astra Militarum unit can only target that unit, and only if it is eligible, and that enemy unit is caught in overlapping fire. When a Genestealer Cults model, so not another Astra Militarum, targets that enemy unit with a ranged attack, they get +1 to hit. So you are combining the two to benefit. Great. So, Brood Brothers special rule. You can include Astra Militarum units in your army, even though they don't have the Genestealer Cult keyword. So the Genestealer stuff won't work for them, and then the Astra Militarum stuff won't work for the GSC. First nitpick. So you can take a combined points cost of Astra Militarum units in your army up to the size of the game you're playing. So Incursion 500, Strike Force 1000, Onslaught up to 1500. So it's half the points you are playing. Fair enough. But should this just read, you can take half your points total in Astra Militarum units. Why do I say that? Because let's say you're playing 1500 points. Well, that means you can have 1,000 points for Astra Militarum and only 500 GSC. And also, what if you're playing something like a 4,000 or 5,000 point game over a weekend with a friend? You're still limited to 1,500 points of Astra Militarum. It should be 50% of your points total can be Astra Militarum. a nitpick, but it's there. And then it goes on to say that a Genestealer Cult unit must be your warlords. You can't take anything for Astra Militarum. And the Astra Militarum lose the voice of command ability. Fine. You cannot include units with the following keywords. Aircraft. That's my issue. Aircraft, Commissar, Epic Hero, Militarum Tempestus, Ogrins, Rattlings, Tech Priest Engineers, or Ministorum Priests. Okay. Epic Heroes I get, Commissar I get, the characters I get, because you're going to bump them off because you're going to be wanting to run them. Ogrins, you've got Abominants. Rattlings, you've already got some snipers. Tempestus seems a bit odd, but let's keep them for Astra Militarum. But my big point is aircraft. Why? Because this lets you take Baneblades. This lets you take super heavy tanks, but you can't have a plane. Why not? Surely you're corrupting the local PDF Air Force, surely. Why can't you have aircraft? That bugs me big time. Okay. Enhancements. Martial Espionage has to be a GSC infantry model. Once per turn, when a friendly Astra Militarum infantry or mounted unit is within 9 inches affected to shoot, the bearer can use the enhancement. If they do so, the AP of those ranged weapons in that unit is increased by 1. Nice. Adaptive Reprisal, 15 points. It has to go on a GSC infantry model. Once per turn, you can target a friendly GSC unit within 9 inches of the bearer for heroic intervention for 0 CP. Nice. The Hero Returned, for 20 points. GSC infantry model only. Improve the leadership and objective control of models in the bearer's unit by 1. Handy. And Firepoint Commander, 10 points. GSC infantry only. Each time you target the bearer's unit with the Fire Overwatch stratagem, they hit on 5s, not just 6s. Nice. But notice, all the enhancements are GSC infantry. Well, obviously it's going to be there because you've got no characters. But it's a slight niggle to me that you can't have that on some sort of Astra Militarum character. Why? You're getting the benefit of the Brood Brothers toys and things. I don't know. I just kind of think it'd be better to at least have something that an Astra Militarum type character could take. Stratagems, though. In the Shadow of Iron. Any phase after an enemy unit ends a move within 9 inches of a cult ambush marker, you can nominate an Astra Militarum vehicle from your army. I'm guessing these are all just so to say that you can use it if you've got one of these on the table, but it seems weird how they word it. Anyway, you select one of those cult ambush markers. You can set it up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches from all enemy units and within 6 inches of your vehicle. Okay. The idea basically being is that your troops are hiding in the shadow of this big tank or whatever that you're trundling up the table. Regimental reinforcements. In your opponent's shooting or fight phase, after an Astra Militarum infantry regiment unit but not an artillery or character is destroyed, you roll a dice and on a 3 plus, you place one cult ambush marker anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy units, and that unit comes back on from strategic reserve basically at full wounds and any one-shot weapons having been fired. And you can only use it once. So it's the reinforcement stratagem from Astra Militarum just reworked here. Suppress and overwhelm. In your shooting phase, after an Astra Militarum unit from your army is shot, you select an Astra Militarum unit, you select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the turn, that enemy unit cannot be targeted by the Fire Overwatch stratagem, and each time a GSC unit from your army selects that unit as a target of a charge, they reroll the charge roll. Wording G-dub, learn. Okay, so I like that. The Astra Militarum suppress the enemy, the Genestealer Cult run in and finish them off. Nice. Acceptable losses for 2 CP. I love this. This is what I like. In your shooting phase, you pick an Astra Militarum unit from your army. You select one enemy unit within engagement range of one of your Genestealer Cult units. To the end of the phase, your Astra Militarum ranged attacks can target that unit, and if they do, after you've resolved any attacks, you roll a d6 for each of your own Genestealer Cult units within the range of that unit, and on a 5+, they take d3 plus 1 mortal wound. So you basically bring the fire down on your own troops, screw them, boom, 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 boom. We need to finish that off. I like that. I kind of wish there was more of that in certain armies in 40k. And because you're taking potentially killing off your own units or doing damage. I'm not sure 2CP needs to be there, but symbiotic destruction. In your shooting phase, you pick one Astra Militarum and one Genestealer Cult unit that have not been selected to shoot. You select an enemy unit that is visible to both of them and within range of at least one ranged weapon from each. Until the end of the phase, models in that unit can only attack that unit, and each doing so, they re-roll wound rolls of 1. Nice. And finally, a Dark Network. When in the reinforcement step of your opponent's movement phase, after they set up an enemy unit on the battlefield from reserves, you can select one Astra Militarum or Genestealer unit, but not monsters or vehicles, within 12 of that unit, and they can make a move of up to 6. Boom. So you run away, or close to a facial thing. Okay, I like this. I think it's got potential. I just think they need to rethink the Brood Brother bit. Mainly the niggle of how many points you can have, and why can't you take aircraft? For goodness sake, G-Dub, you would be selling people models. Anyway, that's a detachment. So, with the exception of the Outlander Claw, I think they're good. I think they're very good. I think they're fun to play against and fun to play. I'm just not keen on the vehicle one. I just don't think it works. So, lastly, your data sheets. Okay, you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. That's a ridiculous number of character models. Your characters outnumber everything else you can take in your codex. That's silly. I kind of get it. You're led by these sort of visionary sort of characters, but you don't need that many. I kind of hope in a way they drop some of these when your codex comes out next. Don't slap me. You've just got too many. Far too many. You don't need, And before anyone goes, but you've got loads of characters in your Space Marine Codex. Yeah, but you can't play all of them. They're all locked to chapters. These aren't. Battle line, you've got 3. Hybrids with pistols, hybrids with flamers, and neophyte hybrids. Fine. Where's the rest of your codex? Goliath Truck, Aberrants, Ridge Runners, Jackals, Rock Grinder, Hybrid Metamorphs, and Genestealers. Where's the rest? It really feels that you are lacking in other toys. Sure, these do the job, but every other codex gets so much more than this. Drop some of the characters, add in some new units. Let's have some sort of mining walker type thing in there, or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, I kind of think you are really missing units in this. You need some more units in your Genestealer Cult. I mean, what would you take though? What should be added? I think the mining style walker, maybe like drilling arms or something like that, would be good. Probably something what's it, the Invicta Warsuit, something equivalent to that. So that's my thoughts on the Genestealer Cult Codex. I'm still not 100% with it. It's nice. It's got nice detachments. It's got some nice rules. It just feels a bit weird. It just doesn't feel like an army in how armies play in 40k. And you've got one detachment, and I'm going on about it, that I feel doesn't fit. There could be something, it could have been done a lot better, and you're missing units. Not sure really what to do with it. They are quite tough, even with what you've got there. They are quite tough to play against. I'm not sure. I've definitely lost more games than I've won against them. Let's put it that way. But what are your thoughts? Are you a GSC player? What am I missing? Please tell me, what am I missing? And if you're not, what are your experiences on playing with them? Do you agree that they should have more toys? Should they have more units in there? Let me know what you think. So yeah. So thank you for watching, guys and girls. Give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and give me your comments down below. It's certainly an army I'd like to learn more about and see where I am misinterpreting it, if I am. But thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll see you next video, hopefully without this annoying hay fever. Anyway, thank you for watching. Take care. Good gaming.